Hello, everyone. My name is Tatjana Luethi. I'm the executive producer of our upcoming conference called Together. And in this episode today, we're going to be talking about conscious leadership. So, joining the conversation here with me are Runa Bouius, an entrepreneur, conscious leadership consultant, and catalyst, a speaker and author. And Runa is also on the board of advisors and a co producer of the Together conference. Hey, Runa, how are you today?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you for being here
Excited to
with
be here.
us. Yeah. And also with us is Francesco Barbera from Corporate Business. Sorry, I just messed up your title, Francesco. You are a corporate business lawyer and advisor at Barbera Corporate Law. So that's your own company, correct, Francesco?
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. And both of you will be speakers at the Together conference next month on September 13 and 14 at We Work in Hollywood. So before we get started with our conversation, I just briefly would like to invite you both to tell our listeners, who are you, and tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do. So Francesco, let's get started with you.
Sure. Thank you, Tatiana. It's nice to be here with you and Runa, talking about I think is a really fascinating and interesting subject. As you mentioned, I'm a corporate attorney. I have a boutique practice in Los Angeles, Barbera Corporate Law, where I work with emerging companies and help them to raise capital, form partnerships, form their companies, and do all, basically create and grow prosperous businesses. In addition to that, some time back, I received some training in psychology and I got a master's degree in psychology, and over the years that kind of aspect of my training has found its way more into my work in the form of executive coaching and counseling. And so I really like to think of myself as a sort of a guide and advisor for executives and entrepreneurs who are wanting to do good work and succeed at it.
Great. Thank you so much, Francesca, for sharing that with us. Let's go to Runa right now. And Runa, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Well, as you mentioned, Tatiana, I spent my first career in my native country, Iceland, for 20 years. I was an entrepreneur and a CEO. And unbeknownst to me at the time, I was practicing many of the conscious leadership principles that we are talking about today. I just didn't know about any of this. I just stumbled onto that. That was my way of being, and a way of being with my people and with my customers. And I came to the US 1996, and apart from raising two children, I also dove into apprenticeship and training in what we now can say is conscious leadership, and it is really the cultivation of the conscious leader. And I was wise enough, or had the knowing, to start with myself. And today, like Francesco, I work as a guide and advisor to leaders, and I offer programs and workshops, retreats in the cultivation of becoming a conscious leader and leading yourself, leading your community, your organization consciously.
Great. Thank you so much, Runa, for the summary. So let's get right into it. And what I would like to do is just briefly contextualize our topic for today. So over the last couple of weeks, Runa and I had various conversations with other speakers that will also be speaking at the Together conference, such as Gene Sullivan, whom we talked about purpose and what does purpose have to do with business. We also had a conversation with Ken Frazier on the topic of stakeholders and what is a stakeholders orientation. And this week, we were engaging in a conversation with Josh Allen Dykstra on the topic of conscious culture. So for today, we're going to be talking about conscious leadership. And let's begin with perhaps Runa, if I may address you with the first question. Why are we even talking about conscious leadership?
Right. Well, it's a good and timely question, and I think it's really great that we are going to be addressing women at this conference, because I think that the reason why we are addressing conscious leadership has a lot to do with women and the feminine principles. In the last century, business was really focused on competition. It was focused on command and control and creating value for only the shareholders. And that does not seem to be a formula that's working very well for the new generation and for the 21st century, because people are wanting and searching for more fulfillment and meaning. And they are not getting that by being managed in the usual traditional workplace. So people are searching and looking for something different. And what is that something different? And what seems to be emerging in the 21st century, at least what I am observing and witnessing, is that in all industries, including yours, Tatjana, in the creative industry, in the business, in finance, and in law, like with Francesco, there is something happening, and people are starting to observe unfolding of something that's very different, and that something different seems to be integrating and honoring and acknowledging what we could call the feminine principles. It has to do with, instead of being competitive, being collaborative. Instead of the logic, we are now also wanting to have feelings and emotions in the formula. We need more creativity, and that comes from calm and groundedness, opposed to pushing and being aggressive, like we have seen in the business world before. So I really feel that we are in a place now where the forgotten, I would say shunned, and kind of disrespected or disregarded qualities of the feminine energy that is both in men and women is coming to the forefront, and is not only welcome but is absolutely needed in order for us to be able to create and find new solutions to the very, very complex challenges and problems we have in the world today, that we have created for the environment, and we have created through our technology. So we are needing different solutions, and I believe that that's coming from the integration of the masculine and the feminine, whatever we want to call it. I see it like an intertwining or a dance of these two energies, and that blossom into a beautiful flower through conscious leadership.
Wow, that was really beautiful, Runa.
It's my poetry for the day.
I don't even know how to respond to this. I think I am, first of all, I totally agree with everything you said, right? And I think it's really so poetic how you articulate it. I love how you articulated, the different comparison between the old ways of doing things and the new ways of doing things, and how we're integrating both of them. And I would be curious, Francesco, I kind of heard that in you. On one hand, you're a lawyer, right? So let's say that could be, more of, I don't know, I'm going to call it the masculine approach and the logic, and very very particular skills and traits that are needed to integrate things. And then you said you also have a master's degree in psychology. So bringing what Runa called, more maybe of the feminine qualities to your work. So it almost sounds like, if I had to think of it as an umbrella term, being a holistic lawyer. I don't know if that would be an appropriate description, but let me just ask you, why did you integrate, I'm going to call it the yin and the yang, and why did you bring it to your practice? What is it about conscious leadership that triggered for you to take this approach?
Hi, yeah, Runa, that was beautiful, and the answer, I guess, from my personal perspective, it is very personal. There was on the one hand, while I appreciated the intellectual challenge and rigor of being an attorney, there was, I felt, a lot more to me that wasn't finding complete expression on that path, and so, at a certain point in my career, that just became sort of unacceptable. I wanted more in my working life, and so I went out and pursued an interest that, for me went back a long time to college and before, and certainly much before law school, and pursuing that that interest and passion of mine, really it did balance me out as a person and as a business person and as a lawyer. So you could say that this sort of natural outcome of me being true to what it is that I cared about, what's important to me, did result, I think, in a more for me personally, more of an experience of wholeness within my working life, and and perhaps in how I approach business lawyering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally hear you. So I like how you said, it really started out with a personal desire, right? And that's really also, the vision and mission behind all the conferences that we're producing is how can we create a structure where we get to fully self-express ourselves, who we are authentically, and how can we merge that desire of personal meaning and purpose into a structure and platform such as a career and or a business, so that we do get to experience that, right? As well as use it as a vehicle and a tool to make a contribution and a difference in society. So perhaps this might be a great segue into what do we mean with conscious leadership? What might be some of the qualities or attributes that contribute to being a conscious leader? So I'm not sure who would like to take up, the first take on this question.
This is a huge question, and the answer is, I've actually tried to put the answer on paper, and it's like never ending. But let me maybe try to take a first step at it. Maybe we could say, if I start with the leader, him or herself, that the difference is that this leader is willing to learn and grow and cultivate all parts of him or herself, that holistic aspect that Francesco talked about. It's to want to express their fullest values and purpose and find joy and satisfaction in what they're doing. And we have been trying it by using the old masculine way of pushing and forcing. We desire something, we create a goal, we do strategy, and then we try to tick it down. And maybe we accomplish it, but it's done in such a way that it isn't making full use of who we are. So it's coming from force. Versus in conscious leadership, we are looking for that which is inside. We are looking for that bigger part of us that wants to be expressed, that beingness that we have, that we don't allow to lead. But that the beingness is really where the creativity comes from. So by allowing that to lead and following the flow, that makes us feel good and gives us positive feelings and emotions, and it's easy and it's flowing. We are working from a completely different energy, and that's the beingness versus the doingness. So once a leader, and this is a lifelong process and journey to do this, but the next, we could say, practical steps out in the world that our conscious leader does is that the conscious leader is always looking at the purpose, number one, and the higher purpose. And everything he or she does is towards that higher purpose. The way they lead their people, the way they lead their organization is to accomplish the higher purpose of the organization. And something else that they do different from the traditional leader, and that is that they try to create value not only for the shareholders, but for the whole system of the stakeholders. And we mentioned this in the stakeholders video. So they are thinking about creating value for everybody that comes at creating the enterprise. That means not only the shareholders, but the employees, the suppliers, the customers, the community around them, the global community, and the environment as well. So that's a long answer, but that's still in short what I think we are trying to accomplish.
Right. And in regards to what you said, it's something that wants to express from within, and we are allowing to be led from that part, and that it is a process. So what I hear you say, that it requires a lot of self-awareness and self-knowledge in order to get
Yes.
us there, right? So that we do actually lead from a very authentic space, versus, what should I call it? An egoistic driven agenda, if I may call it that.
Yeah, so absolutely. And I would say it's a process, and that process can become a practice, and the practice will help us to become more and more of a conscious leader. But in order to make it really work, we have to have an intention, and we have to have 100% commitment to the practice. So it's not something we do in a weekend workshop or read a book. It's what you and I are doing every single day, Tatjana, as co-producers of this conference. It is everything we do and create, every decision we make, every problem we solve is coming from that practice.
So it's like a lifestyle. It's not a diet. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
Okay. Francesco, what would you say? Maybe we can integrate the conversation into, what's happening in the sector of law, right? Where you're coming from. How do you see?
Well, I I see, to me the emergence of conscious business, and all of the thinking around conscious capitalism, and it comes from a kind of growing recognition that there's a growing appreciation, that there are some pretty serious problems, like systematic problems, that we're confronting now on the planet, like economic inequality, and environmental challenges, and and things like that have in part that are in part the kind of byproducts of the free market and the capitalist system. And at the same time, there's this appreciation for the power of business, and entrepreneurship, and this recognition that free market capitalism, combined with technology and science, has just been this incredible driver of unprecedented prosperity, and an increase in our standards of living and our health and longevity and all the rest. And so, to me, conscious business is like it's a movement that's asking this question: how do we take this power and this good behind the free market system, like the capitalist system, and then be conscious of its sort of potentially negative byproducts and consequences, and can we harness the good and at the same time mitigate and eliminate the bad. And so to me, conscious leaders are really at the forefront of that question, and they're like the scientists conducting this new experiment of, can we create businesses that fuel all the good that business has fueled in the past, but without all the negative side effects that none of us want, without the environmental exploitation, without creating workplaces that that are hostile to families or that don't foster the full vitality and potential of employees, or you know, that lead to other unjust or unintended impacts and consequences.
Yeah. No,
I mean, so the question, I mean, I think the question is like, you know, are all these bads like a necessary part of the free market system, or are they just the product of an incomplete level of, an incomplete level of understanding that we've had in the past, or an insufficient level of consciousness?
right.
And, and so it's a tremendous opportunity and experiment and advance in where we're taking the potential of, what I think everyone appreciates is just a phenomenal, it's an economic system. There's so much good here, and can we make it better?
Right. And I love what you just said. I mean, in overall, what we all stand for is we're basically redefining how we do business and why we are in business, right? Like you said, in a way where we can mitigate the impacts that have been generated so far and contribute to a new model, which is part of this entire conference. Like you said, all of this is an inquiry. How can we collectively come together, put our collective intelligence together, and explore and experiment with each other to create a new model that does generate an integration of, I'm going to call it the yin and the yang. And what might that look like? How can we generate that platform where we get to experience this personal fulfillment, yet make a difference at the same time to our societal and environmental challenges? So thank you very much, Francesco. I love what you just said.
Yeah, and I love.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I love what Runa shared about that willingness to ask the question. And one of your questions was, what are the sort of qualities of what we're calling conscious leaders, and I do think it's that willingness to, there's lots of qualities, but I would say the first is like that kind of learning orientation, the sort of humility, if you will, of being willing to ask the question, ask the questions and explore new possibilities, new ways of doing things, and asking, because really, this is a whole set of questions that we're asking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Runa, what might be some, I guess what I'm trying to create a little bit is, a verbal list of our listeners, or for our listeners, what those qualities and attributes might be. What are they to be or become a conscious leader?
Right. Well, Francesco mentioned the openness to learn and to grow, and coming from that humility of not thinking we need to have the answers or know the answers, but rather to live in the question. The question is more important than the answer. The inquiry is more important than the answer. It is to be able to be flexible and adaptable. As we see the world today, it seems to be going faster and faster, and the complexity is increasing every single day. So we might have a plan, but that plan external forces will come in and explode that plan. So we need to be willing to be flexible. We want to create community. We want to be more genuinely collaborative. And what I mean with that is not just doing a lip service to work with someone, but really to have the other person's interest and success at heart as well. So we genuinely can create a win-win for everybody. It is to be loving and caring. The word love has not been a word that's been commonly used within business. I wrote an article not so long ago that I called Let's Talk Love and Leadership, and it was inspired by articles and conversations I was having with my friends and colleagues about this issue, and what the conscious capitalism does so beautifully, and I absolutely love them for that, is that they literally talk about love, kindness, and caring, both to ourselves as well as to our coworkers and to everybody. And it is to work in process instead of just the force. It is the understanding the interdependence of all things. So that's where we come to the stakeholders orientation as well. Understand that we are all connected, just like in nature. So we think we are separate, and we have been focusing on me, I and me and mine. I call it the me leadership, and we are really moving towards the we leadership. And the list is long, and I want to give the word to Francesco. I'm sure you could add to this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful list, and I think what I would add to it is really, I guess what I would refer to as just the willingness to look. So consciousness is really about being awake and being aware, and about seeing, and so it's the willingness, I would say, to look and look at what's really going on with integrity, with the fixity of purpose, in terms of what is, and on many different levels. Look at the business and what are we producing? What are we putting out into the world? What is our what kind of value are we creating for our users, for our clients, and for our customers? And in the same vein, what kind of an experience are we creating for our internal family, our employees, and suppliers and stakeholders, and then also maybe most important, the willingness to look inward as a leader, in terms of looking at, in an honest way, where am I coming from? How am I being? Am I acting from my highest self and my highest values at any given time? Am I acting from, as Runa nicely put it, from purpose, from integrity, from courage, from love, or am I acting from fear and self-interest and those other constricted qualities that we all have? And I think that's the primary work, I think, for all of us, including all of us in leadership, which we all are, is to increasingly becoming from those expansive, higher qualities in how we lead our lives and lead our businesses.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I love about what you both just said right now, and I think the good news in all of this is it really sounds like, these are abilities and skills that can be learned, right? That each one of us has an opportunity to acquire these qualities and attributes. And I'm going to categorize them into two categories. I'm going to call them the inner and the outer, meaning to a certain degree, we have to start with inner development and personal growth and, development to look at what is our mindset, what are our attitudes, what's the view that we have about the world, and how might it be outdated? How is that view and that way of being no longer serving us and actually being disempowering to ourselves and others? So that's the inner work. And I guess if we were to transition over to the outer work, what are the skills that we need to develop so as to actually turn these principles and practices and being able to embody them so it doesn't just remain talk, which is something that's another question that I wanted to ask. How do we implement and embody these concepts and theories so it doesn't just all remain talk? Now we're almost out of time, so I just want to keep this really briefly. We will be going over this and we will be covering this in a hands-on workshop at the conference. But let me just open it up to both of you. You know, how do you implement and embody these concepts, right? Where do we get the opportunity to do that?
I feel that the opportunity is in front of us every single day in every interaction we have with other people. And the way I like to see it is that I try to stock my behavior and see and to feel into the impact that I have on other people. And is my impact what I really intended? And if I feel it is not, I need to look myself at my behavior and how might I want or need to change my behavior in the future to get the impact that I want. It's really about walking our talk. We have the concepts, we have the theories, but then it is up to us. It's our responsibility to to cultivate this and to take stock of how are we doing this. And it doesn't mean that we are perfect. We are not going to be perfect. We are going to mess up. But if we are stocking ourselves truthfully and from a humble place, and sometimes we need help from the outside to see these blind spots, and be willing to correct them, I think that is the practice. That is how we gradually become more and more embodied in these principles. So it's really your environment. How are your relationships with your family, with your friends, with your coworkers, with the world at large?
Right.
Are they positive and enjoyable, or are you constantly in trouble?
There's something very empowering that you just said, and I just want to repeat that to really make sure this is driving home to everybody that's listening. The opportunity is really to see our everyday life as an opportunity to develop ourselves and to transform those aspects of ourselves that are no longer working versus remaining inside what I call a victimization perspective, right? That our current circumstances are the reason why we cannot move forward. So it's, if I hear you correctly, it's taking responsibility and just looking at everyday situation as an opportunity and platform to transform those aspects.
Yep.
Love it.
That's right. Yep.
Love it. Francesco.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that Runa said. It's like once you ask that question in an honest way, then and you live in that question, then really life becomes an unfolding set of possibilities and opportunities for growth. So if really just if as a leader, you just got a group of your employees together and said, how do we do this together? Like, how do we create a more conscious organization together? Just living together in that question by itself would produce so much energy and vitality and creativity, and the answers that would emerge from that, nobody could say what they are before the question is asked. But that to me is really, that's what tapping into the human potential is about. That's what I think conscious leaders are at the forefront of discovering.
Right.
And it's just being willing to ask those questions and see what emerges. And I think all the evidence that we have suggests that as human beings we really are at our best when we're living from higher values. And to me that's the greatest untapped potential in business. Is it lies there, and that's why I think you see a lot of attention increasingly being paid to purpose in business and things like that. It's because as human beings we're really at our best when we're focused on service, when we're focused outside of ourselves, and we all want to make meaningful contributions and
Right.
to be living for a purpose greater than ourselves. So and a leader taps into that innate potential and that innate quality in human beings. It's kind of like, like striking oil. It's like there's an inexhaustible, I think, wellspring of human creativity and energy that's just waiting there to be unlocked.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what I love about, with what you just said, that we are all becoming more service oriented or value oriented or customer oriented. So it's really through these business principles and practices, we're not only transforming business, but we're really trickling down to the individual, and it allows for each one of us to transform ourselves. Because I think the key also, sometimes I hear people say, well, but I don't do so well in collaborations. I think we're facing an opportunity right now where it's a twofold development. So we get to develop our autonomous, authentic voice. It's just so we're doing it collectively together. Hence, the conference called Together, right? What can we do? What can we generate? What is it that we can, you know, do with each other together so as to create a better tomorrow? So at this point, I need to wrap it up. We're actually over our time. But let me just really briefly repeat the dates for the conference. The Together conference is going to be a 2-day conference in Hollywood at WeWork in 2 weeks from now. It's taking place on Saturday and Sunday, September 13 and 14. And again, the whole purpose is this is a platform for women to come together and learn how can we live a life and career of prosperity and really making a difference. How do we build a conscious, profitable, purposeful, and sustainable business or career? And so for more details, I invite everybody to go to schooltogether.com. That's SK as a king, OOLtogether.com. I also want to take an opportunity really quick to thank our sponsors. Specifically, we have Whole Foods in Venice. We have WeWork in Hollywood. Special thanks to Runa Bouius and Vidra Media. We also have AIGA Los Angeles. And I want to thank all of our media partners, which are listed on our conference. So that's pretty much it for today. Runa, Francesca, thank you so much. Francesco. Sorry, Francesco. Thank you so much for being here today. This was an awesome conversation, and we're going to be continuing that in 2 weeks with both of you at the Together conference. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Tatjana.
Thank you, Tatjana. Thank you.